So here we have our JLU. We're gonna make it beast mode. It's from 2019. I found these tracks laying around the other day. I bought them like 5 years ago. And we're gonna put them on. And you can see the upgrades I've done to the JLU.
Oh, that's real good.
The ESC is gonna have to move. You can see I've put some aftermarket shocks on them, and some Injora shocks to go with the tracks to give it more clearance so the tracks wouldn't rub on the body. You can see I'm running a Barrage engine in it. Like I said, this one was put together in 2019, and the Barrage engine was one of the better engines you could get back then. You can see it compared to the Dynamite engine, it's much bigger. So it did do a lot better, but now we got the 34 turn 370 engine, which is just a beast. We're gonna stick it in there. I got it in my Power Wagon, and the first thing it did when I put it in my Power Wagon was it snapped the U-joint in my drive shaft. So I had to go with steel drive shafts. I changed that. The next thing it did was snap the front axle shaft. Anytime the tire would get hung up on the rock, it would just snap something. It, wouldn't bog down. So I've got some hardened drive shafts to put in the front of the JLU. I've got steel or hardened axle shafts and steel drive shafts. We're gonna go ahead and turn this thing into a beast, and then it's not gonna break down. Also, while I'm in there, I'm gonna put these high clearance links in from Injora I found laying around. There's a 34 turn engine. It comes with this servo extension cord because you have to move the ESC, and you need to have a wire, extension wire for the motor. I put that together with some wires I had laying around. So the ESC is going to move back to the battery tray, and here's the engine sitting in there. You see it's much bigger. Here's the new shock mounts that you have to use, because the factory shock mount, you just have to take it out and get rid of it to make room for the engine. So we're going to go ahead and unhook the ESC, and we're going to start taking out the battery tray and get that out of there. We took off the body to give us some more room to work. Go ahead and clean up our workspace. So we're gonna go ahead and change the drive shafts out and the engine out. We're gonna take the 3 little screws out of the engine, and it comes right out. There you go. Not bad for 2019 technology, but we have much better in 2026. So we're gonna go ahead and get the new engine ready to go. We're gonna put the drive shafts on it right now while it's out to make it easier. Mesus makes a good drive shaft, although most of the drive shafts you get nowadays don't have the D insert in them. I had to go to Mofo to get some of those. And there's the pad, the sticky pad, 2-sided tape for the ESC. We'll use that later. You can see the drive shaft is on pretty secure. And we're going to go ahead and put the other drive shaft on and get it in there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the ESC tray and get it off of there. We'll separate that later. Now we're going to stick the engine in there, and with 3 screws we're back in business. The engine is mounted, and here you can see the difference between the 2 engines. This new 34 turn 370 engine has a lot of torque and a lot of power. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get my little special tool out that came with the tracks. And these are just plastic tracks. They're not metal. So the next failure point will be the tracks. I like to put the wheel nuts back on the axles after I take them off, because they're so small and they can get lost so easy. It just makes it easier to keep track of them and keeps all the hardware on the end. So we're going to go ahead and start putting these links in while we have everything apart. We're going to start putting the front links in and get those set in there. And we're going to go ahead and put the other part of the drive shaft on. You have to make sure that you have the drive shaft phased or clocked correctly. And that would be lining up the U-joints on the drive shaft so they look the same and they're in direct line. So the pin going through the U-joint of the drive shaft, you want matching on the other side with the other side of the drive shaft, the pin on that side, to make sure that they're clocked correctly. So we're going to go ahead and put this Y-link in. Like I said, this is an old set I had laying around. It's not 4-link. Here's the new shock mounts that go up front. They do say left and right on them. I don't know if you can see it in the video or not. But we're going to go ahead and get those put on. We're going to install the rear drive shaft on the rear axle. Make sure it's clocked correctly. Go ahead and tighten it down. There. You can see the shocks are back attached, back in the places they should be. The shock mounts have multiple mounting points, so it's just a matter of preference and ride where you want to mount them. I just stuck them on the second hole for right now. We're going to go ahead and take the hub off and get the front axle shaft out of there. It's very important when you put the axle shafts back in that you don't over tighten the hub. And if you over tighten it, you can just try to turn it with your hand and you'll see how stiff it is. You want to keep those loose so the servo doesn't have a difficulty turning the front tires or front tracks. So don't over tighten those, keep them loose. And we're going to go ahead and put a new bearing on. Tighten everything down, get the rear axle shaft out now. There's just 2 screws that hold the bearing in, which holds the axle shaft in. You take those 2 screws out and then pull the axle shaft with the bearing right out. The rear bearings were in pretty good shape, so I didn't change those out. I just put them right back in.
Oh, that's real good.
So you can see the difference in the axle shafts here. The newer one is closer to you and the older one's in the back. The diameter is a little bit thicker. The rear axle shafts are pretty strong in the stock version. So here's the battery tray. You can see I put a little lead bar on there to give it some low down weight. Like I said, I bought this in 2019. There wasn't a lot of upgrades back then. So we're going to mount the ESC next. So you can see that the engine wire is not long enough to go into the ESC in its current location. So you need an extension wire, a jumper wire. And like I said, I put this together with some wires I had laying around. And then we're going to use this pad for mounting the ESC. You just want to make sure that when you mount it, you offset the ESC a little bit towards the side where your steering servo is going to attach, because that engine is really big and it will make it hard to put the steering servo wire in if you mount it directly in the middle. So we're going to mount it a little bit off to one side. The good news is these EMAX servos have really long wires to them, and it doesn't require extension or jumper wire for that. It just plugs right back into the ESC in its current location. However, the front LED lights are very short, so we're going to use the jumper wire that came with the engine for that. And we're going to push that back in. Now we're going to plug the engine into the ESC. You can see that there's now a plethora of wires there. We're going to get those all cleaned up. Here's the Velcro on the battery. I prefer Velcro as opposed to the battery straps. They hold better, they stay in place, and you can put them where you want them for the weight bias. So we're going to go ahead and get the zip tie put in place to tighten all these wires up and clean everything up. Keep them from flopping all over the place.
Oh, that's real good.
So there you have it there. It's ready to go back together. We're going to put the body back on. And we're going to put the tracks back on. Now you can see we're going to have to do something with the front to attach the body to the chassis because the shock mount tower is no longer there with the Velcro. So we're going to have to deal with that later, but not today. So we'll give her a try. You can see the lights are on and turn it on, and it drives just fine. Hard to drive it on the table. But we're going to take it out for a rip and let you see what it can do out there. So now we're driving out on the snow, and you can see that it's not bogging down. The snow is not. It gets in the tracks, but it's not slowing it down at all. When I had it out there before, as soon as snow would get inside the tracks, the barrage engine was just not strong enough to keep it going. So this engine, however, is not going to have that problem. The motor is a little louder than a stock motor. It's much bigger, so it's going to be louder. But it is a very, very powerful, torquey engine. So if you are looking for something with some power, this will be your engine. It does not have wheel speed. Here in a second, I'm going to go ahead and give it full throttle so you can see how fast it will go full throttle. We're going to go full throttle about right here. Oh, no, not right here. First, we got to back up. We're going to back up here, and then we're going to go full throttle. You can see it's not a fast engine. It's not going to be fast with the tracks, especially, but it is not a really fast engine. It does not have really high wheel speed. And that's it. Thanks.